add to that just about processing fear? Because I've put a lot of focus on that in the last few months, and I found that stepping into desire and action, taking action, not in the sense of like, okay, I'm afraid of heights, I'm going to jump out of an aeroplane. No, first connect to what is my desire, what do I feel the truth is in this situation. Now I'm going to stay true to that and step into whatever this experience is, like this interaction with me and another person. And that is the time when I've released the most fear and been triggered, and I've had to leave the interaction sometimes and go and process. But I feel that the danger of processing fear when we're not challenging our desires or our actions, because that's the thing that limits our actions and desires, is fear. When we're not stepping into that, just focusing on this, I'm going to take a new action, or I'm going to step into this desire, that can trigger our fear much more than just sort of sitting going, okay, I'm afraid of other people, I'll just feel that. If it's not changing in my interactions with other people, I know I'm not releasing the fear, because immediately that I start releasing the fear of other people, my interactions with other people will change. But also, my experience is when I step into more interactions with people, first recognising what is the truth, what is my addiction, how am I going to challenge this, then step into the interaction, my fears have been challenged and released far more rapidly. Does that make sense?
Would you mind giving an example of something that you've done recently? Because I always understand best when somebody...
Sure. Yep. So I've got a lot of terror about spirits. And so I started running the mediumship team in God's Way of Love organisation that we've just launched. And there's a number of people in that team who have been very spirit influenced in the past and very attacking as a result towards myself and AJ. And at the opening of the first meeting, I said, guys, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about the fact that spirit influence can happen and how we're going to deal with it. How as a team, can we make sure that we don't make this a venue, if you like, for spirits to influence all of us into other interactions that aren't authentic. And so we agreed that we would ask the person who's spirit influenced, give them the truth and ask them to leave, and they could come back at a time when they weren't so overcloaked. By the end of the first meeting, someone with some spirits who very violently opposed to myself and AJ, specifically myself, someone became very influenced by them, and I felt, I could feel my fear. And I thought, if I don't submit to this fear in my interaction with this person, I'm going to get resistive, or I'm going to get angry with them and try and shut them down. So because I wanted to stay in in a loving space with this whole group, I went, I'm going to have to soften into this fear. And I stood and shook and talked to the person about what I could feel was happening, and we spoke at length. And eventually he couldn't see what was happening, so eventually I had to ask him to leave, and he was very angry with me. But during the whole process, I remained connected to myself, because this is the beautiful thing about when we soften into our fear. We stay in connection with ourselves. We know what is loving in that space, even if we might be shaking. And so I shook and asked him to leave, and since then I feel less fear of those kind of interactions. But I had to challenge it in the moment.
For yourself, Vera, anger is the result of the underlying fear not being felt. So whenever you feel frustrated or angry, it's because you're not allowing yourself to feel the underlying fear. So if sort of that in that way, anger is your guide into what you're avoiding. So you know straight away if any time you feel just a moment or a tinge even of frustration, whatever it's about, it might even be about the fact that you're feeling ill, right? And you feel quite angry that you're feeling sick. Allow yourself to realise, actually, this is covering over my fear about feeling sick. Does that make sense? And allow yourself to go into that fear and feel that fear instead of trying to avoid it through anger or avoid it by doing. So you'll do usually one of two different things. When somebody projects at you, I want you to do what I want, you'll either do what they want, which is a way of avoiding your terror of them when you don't do what they want, or you'll go in and you'll feel quite ill. You'll actually create more physical ailment within yourself as a way of excusing yourself from doing what they want. Does that make sense? So the creation of the sickness is actually helping you avoid what they're projecting at you without actually having to say to them, you're actually wanting me to do something and no, I'm not going to. You can now say to them, oh, I'm sorry, but I can't help you because I'm feeling sick and I really need to rest. Does that make sense? It's a way of actually avoiding the confrontation emotion. So the way the spirits around you and people around you manipulate you is they project the rage, if you like, to you, or to be more honest, it's the threat of rage to you. So in other words, you're very, very sensitive to people who potentially could become rageful with you. So most of the time they don't, because you're already doing what they want. Does that make sense to you? So because you're already doing what they want, they're not going to get in a rage with you. What you're scared of is stopping doing what they want, and then they'll get into a rage with you. And the way to avoid that then is to have actually an illness where you go, oh, I'm too sick to do what you want. You follow me? And it's a great way of actually not having to confront their rage, because they at least might have some compassion for your sickness and therefore not be angry with you for not doing what they wanted you to do in the first place. Now, in terms of the original question you asked was the codependency. In other words, what are you addicted to getting from them? Right? Well, firstly, what you're doing is you're addicted to preventing their potential anger. Does that make sense? How does it feel when somebody's angry with you?
My dad scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you feel about yourself when they're angry with you?
Helpless.
Yep. Yep. And if you allow yourself to settle even further down, you'll find actually there's quite a few emotions in how you feel when they're angry with you. Terrible feelings inside of yourself about yourself. Like you almost blame yourself for another person's anger with you.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough to stop it.
Yep. So in other words, this person who is potentially, so I probably should write that there, potentially in a rage with you. In other words, they have this underlying soul condition where they could easily get into a rage with you if you didn't give them what they wanted, right? And there's that automatic threat that, well, you think about your parents, and that threat has come from them quite strongly when you were little, right? This automatic threat, unless you do what I want, then we're going to have trouble here. And after a while, the child learns that I've just got to always do what they want. And then I avoid their rage. That's how I avoid their rage. So I just do, and eventually exhaust myself doing to avoid their rage. So what you're addicted to is avoiding other people's rage. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Avoiding the emotion that comes from them to you when you don't do what they want. That's what you're avoiding. And those emotions are all sorts of emotions, ranging from condescension right the way through to just bare violence. And you have a range of people around you like that, who, you know, would just be condescending towards you, right the way through to somebody who would just be like, you know, angry and really quite violent with you. And if you think back at your childhood again, same pattern going on there. So after a while, we become so addicted to having this person not be angry with me that I'll do almost anything they want in order to prevent them from being angry with me. Right? And there's my hole. My hole is actually I need to learn that it's okay for the other person to be angry with me. I'm still not going to do what they want, even when they're angry with me, and even if they're condescending towards me, and even if they tell me that I'm a bitch or a bastard, and even if they tell me that they're going to try to harm me, and all of those kind of things, I'm still not going to do what they want. And in fact, for myself, what happens with me, the more a person treats me that way, the less chance there is of me doing what they want. For yourself, the more they treat you that way, the more chance there is of you doing what they want. Do you see? There's a big difference between those two states. So the key is to allow yourself to see how frightened you are, and in a way, I'd say the underlying causal emotion is partly about how much you can't trust God, that God's going to protect you in an angry situation. And that is a really deep childhood feeling that you have, that you weren't protected in angry situations. So the key is to allow yourself to embrace that grief that's just there while I'm talking about it. That's it. And just allow yourself to embrace that grief fully and let yourself fully feel that, no, God's not going to protect me, so I've got to come up with some alternative arrangement here. And the alternative arrangement is I'll do whatever they want. That's the alternative.
And would you say that is really the block to Elvira processing her fear? Because
Yes.
at the moment you touch into your fear and go, no, I can't do this because, excuse me, I'm not going to be protected. Whereas once you grieve this feeling that God's not going to be there, you'll have more faith. And then when you hit your fear, you'll go, it's okay, I can just surrender to this fear.
And God will help me through the whole process. God will help me deal with this emotion.